Hey, good evening, everybody. I kind of wanted to just touch on something a little bit that I've been, thinking, reading about, and working on, and it's just um, in the age that we live in, with so much just garbage out there. How it's what can we rely on? And that answer is you can rely on your internal. You can rely on yourself, and that's really about it. Um, but that's okay. That's really what you need. My question for each of us tonight is actually to do with information. Where's information about the universe stored? Think about this, meaning where can we gather and learn information about the world around us? How is it that this information we learn, how is it incorporated physically into our minds? We know that through repetition of physical activity, that creates muscle memory and can train the body to be quicker, stronger, more responsive. But I would submit that in each of us lies a dormant capacity to connect all knowledge in similar fashion. There books of knowledge have been burned, and we know that. Brilliant thinkers have existed, and we know that, and they're no longer with us. Some of the knowledge that they distilled was left behind, but the knowledge still exists. It wasn't created by the book. It didn't exist in the ink. It didn't exist solely in the teacher. It didn't die with those actions. Knowledge of the spiritual world to mystics and prophets and the like, it didn't originate with them, and it didn't end with them. And just as we can go outside and we can gather information about the weather easily because we've learned how to tell when it's cold, rainy, hot, we can learn spiritual hidden truth through experience and the right interpersonal practices and state of mind. Now, there does now and has always existed people who access the spiritual realms just the same as we learn and access the physical realms in which we live. One of the things that I've learned is to view the world as spirit, soul, and physical. The spirit world is the world around us, the realm around us. The soul is what binds my subjective consciousness to my physical body. Now, certainly which aspect that you focus on becomes the most relevant and the most real. But nonetheless, they all exist, and the separation of each of them is really only our own personal illusions. Just as a child must learn to develop a conscious understanding of what their lower sensory perceptions are showing them at birth, we can also develop a spiritual understanding of our higher sensibility. In the past, and in past generations, someone could seek a guru. We still can, a teacher or a mystic, but in the Western world that's been dominated by a church based on exoteric, lower explanations of spiritual truth, that teacher has been replaced by a community, so to speak, and a dependency on weekly teachings or a dogma rather than a life immersed focus, developing the faculties needed in order to discern spiritual truths. In the current spiritual state in which we are in, we've been raised and taught to outsource our enlightenment to an authority outside of our own internal abilities to fulfill this need. And, it's fulfilled with lessons and sermons and teachings and, the like. Just as in worlds past, though, which I do believe existed, we will eventually lose the ability to see into the spiritual realm if we don't return to developing this ability rather than looking for answers through an intermediary or another person. These internal questions that we all have, they have to be answered for ourselves on an individual basis. And this can really be the only way that we can actually bring corporate credence to our higher powers, through individual discovery of these truths, and then acknowledgement on a corporate basis, corporate level. This type of teaching and learning, it really has always existed. There are those who've already developed these faculties, and they can help guide others into their own extrasensory development. But to put it simply, the esoteric or the hidden knowledge is held back mostly for pragmatic reasons. Because one must discern it for themselves. So if your question is for a direct answer instead of how to find the answer on your own, you simply might not be ready to receive that information. Patience, reverence, and respect is virtuous in this endeavor. And in the beginning of your journey, it is absolutely vital. Remember, your potential and actualization of your potential are not the same thing. As an example, I myself, as a young man playing music in a band at the age of 18, learned that the people around me during a party were more than just affected by the binary code-like beat of the bass drum, but that the entire event itself was directed by such. And it really was only later on that I internally learned the actual power that this hidden truth possesses. And even further, before I knew firsthand how it's exploited by some less than caring people who've already developed that knowledge of that hidden truth for themselves. And they've kept it for generations. But back to my question, where is this knowledge stored? I think there's a simple answer. I think the knowledge is stored all around us. And it is accessible just through our own personal experience. See, while in previous generations and cultures, seeking out reliable teachers of how to access that information was probably easier than it was today. Fortunately, however, we do not need to learn those secrets by lesson, but rather in keeping with the ability to learn to read, write, discern colors and smells, which can only be replicated exactly in the eye of each individual beholder. I think we can learn to navigate the world the same based on a replicated development of our higher faith sense. And when I say faith, I mean each of us has an individual awareness of the spiritual world. I would submit that when one decides to begin their journey, though we do not want to do it alone, that we must consider that our individual experience yields more reliable information than anything else we can put our hands on, and then more reliable information than anybody who we can seek out to teach us. I would also submit that there is an established method to this, and the first step of which is simple. It's just reverence. As a newborn baby, just minutes old, we've already experienced a tremendous metamorphosis over the previous 9 months or so, culminating into being pushed from a warm cocoon of amniotic fluid in which surely all of our information was filtered through a spiritual mechanism, and then being pushed into this physical world that we are in now, fully in the physical illusion of separation in an instant. And from that simple observation, we know much more must be happening below the surface. It is this initial state of physical life that we can mirror our entrance into the spiritual senses. We've let those go and let those become stagnant. This would, in my opinion, require a state of reverence for everything around us, putting zero preconceived judgment on anything, simply seeing, experiencing, and interacting. The first step of reverence, we must learn to develop this and try to begin to view every anecdote through the lens that there is a spiritual component to it and to what we're seeing and what we're doing. Nothing is arbitrary because nothing in existence has zero purpose, and all purpose begins as a spiritual intention coming from the source. Let us consider that by viewing reverence, not what it is, but by trying to view what it is not. The antonym of reverence would be to despise. So let me ask, how can we become spiritual students if we choose to despise, or at the very least, be unaware of the spiritual element in all life and action? Adoration and reverence for all things around us is the place in which we can begin to experience the spiritual awakening that we desire. It can't be achieved, however, just by observing. We have to experience. Life offers us so many opportunities, and only by living it on a daily basis can we start to experience this. Therefore, once we've begun this path, it must be an inward motion. Those around us shouldn't notice this change, at least not easily. And only through time and experiencing the change in you, just as you change and it affects your company with them. It's subtle. We need to first seek in all things around us what can arouse our spirit of admiration and respect. If I meet other people and criticize what I see to be their deficiency, or I try to attack their weakness, kind of like we're in competition, then what I'm really doing is I'm taking from myself this spirit of reverence and admiration, and then I go back into engaging life with the illusion that we're separate, competing, separate entities. When in reality, the same light that carries my conscious thought is what is flowing through every perceivable biological and inanimate object. And that very substrate itself is the container of the knowledge that we seek. To despise anyone is to despise the essence of creation, based upon our own limited, subjective, and infantile ideas of spiritual truth. In short, know that it exists, see it in everything, and love it for what it is, and work hard to stay in that place. Folks, if you could do me a favor, please like and subscribe Big Skinny Matthew's channel. Also, hop over, check out the Big Skinny Show. It's a collaboration that I do with Intellectual Catch-Up. Jake Jones is a brilliant scientific mind, and I love what I learn from him. Also, hop over and like and subscribe Intellectual Catch-Up. Folks, you can support me by my Cash App at bigskinnymatt. It's going to be posted in the here in the video. If you like, if you choose, that would be great. If not, it's not a big deal. But please like, subscribe, comment, interact with me, talk with me. I love talking and meeting new people. If you disagree with me, tell me, and tell me why I'm wrong. I want to learn. I have no doubt that there's many, 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 many wiser, more in tune people that I can learn from. So connect with me. Folks, you be blessed. And until next time.